Hey, it's Maddie again, and today I wanted to share a few thoughts about partners and the possibilities and the potentials and the problems that come along with partners. And it's something that I've seen a lot of over my lifetime, and not just in my own businesses, but just in like watching other people and the experiences I've had in working for companies with partners. One of the one of the big things is that sometimes partners don't have the same objectives, and I mean they can look wonderful on paper, but um, and honestly, this is not something I know how to screen for. But the experience that comes to my mind the most was actually one of the first places I worked at was a local Tex-Mex chain. They had like four restaurants in Indiana, and most of the time that I worked at one of them, it was managed by one of the partners, and uh, there were some problematic things going on there with him, but uh, our our location was profitable. You know, in fact, there were a couple of years there where we carried everybody else who was losing money, and it turned out that that was something that was actually irking the quote unquote silent partner because he wanted it to fail. It was supposed to be some kind of a tax write-off thing, and and it and our location wasn't bad. It was good. We were on the bad end of the mall, and the anchor at our end was Kmart, if I remember right. And you know, it was not a good look. It wasn't a good location for a sit-down restaurant, really. But we made it work, and we made it work really, really well. And I learned so many lessons about business there, and not and about management and about you know teamwork and what it takes to build a team. Not necessarily from watching the manager at work, but by watching everybody else and seeing how people related to one another. And I think that ultimately that is that was key to our success. It wasn't actually management strategy or anything like that. It was how we as employees supported one another. It was how we, went out of our way to help when somebody needed it, when someone was having a bad time, and oh well, that may not be our section, or that may not be the room that I'm covering as a table attendant, but I'm going to go help them out anyway because I have a spare moment and they really need help and they're having a bad time. And because for the most part, there weren't egos involved, it worked really, really well. And everything that was kind of happening behind the scenes that way above our level, we didn't even notice that stuff. It wasn't until later when the place closed down that it came out what exactly was going on. And but despite everything that they threw at us, we managed to keep bringing people back in, and it wasn't and again, it wasn't due to management strategy. It wasn't due to any kind of big vision or anything. It was due to us on the front lines and in the kitchen saying, we want to work together. We want to be as good of a place. We want to be as proud of the place that we work at as possible. And uh, and we made it work. We made it work, much to the dismay of the senior partner who wanted it to fail. And I mean, eventually they managed to do it. They got uh, brand brand new equipment in the kitchen and put new items on the menu that weren't part of the whole Tex-Mex thing, and eventually they just saddled us with so much debt as a company that we couldn't pay the bills and the place had to close. But I mean they installed like $500,000 worth of financed equipment in our restaurant in order to force us into failure. That's what it took. And despite the fact that the restaurant failed, looking back on it, I'm incredibly proud of what we did to try to make it succeed. And if they come out and told us right away, oh, why are you doing this? We are supposed to fail. Hurry up and make it fail. Screw it. There's a Texas Roadhouse going in down the road. We'll just all go work down there. Here you go. Here's your failed restaurant. Because ultimately, it really didn't matter what kind of food we were serving or anything like that. It was the fact that we enjoyed working together and we worked well together as a team, despite occasional bumps in the road and stuff that you always have. It was just a really, really positive place to work. And but ultimately, the fact that the so-called silent partner, who is a majority owner, decided to force it into failure, we couldn't do anything about that. Hell, our manager, who's a minority partner, couldn't do anything about it. Guy with the majority member stake in the LLC, he could have it however way he wanted to because he had the membership share to force things through. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I don't believe in seeking out partners to own my businesses with me, because somebody can be perfect on paper, somebody can say all the right words, someone can always can be that perfect person that you need to complement your own skill set. But at the end of the day, do you really know what their motivations are? Now, if we're talking a smaller share, then I'm willing to accept that. But if it's like I want a majority share in exchange for funding, the answer to that is heck no, because I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and it's not just my current project. This is any project I've ever had. If it's if there's more than two partners, I'm going to make sure that somebody else, maybe my life partner, is also involved, so that there's enough votes on my side to block something really bad from happening from one of the other owners. And I get that that's cynical and all that stuff, but that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the idea of putting this project that I'm working on into making it a nonprofit, because you lose control. And I've seen too many nonprofits, especially those that get into areas that may have a lot of politicking going on, or really tread into the territory of people of influence. Oh, they just buy their way into the board of directors and basically corrupt the mission. And I guess I'm just somebody who really, I don't want to be the modern kind of entrepreneur who starts a business, turns around and sells it, has an exit strategy, and is there to to get the idea out in the open, but also to position it for sale as quickly as possible to somebody with deep pockets so I can get on to the next thing. You know, that's not me. I don't consider that to be good stewardship of the resources that are placed into my hands, that are or the trust that people place in me. You know, because we all know how that works. We all know that almost inevitably results in corruption of the mission and the values of the company. And there are just some things I am not willing to sacrifice. And so so I don't offer advice on how to screen partners or anything like that. I don't know how to, because that's not something that I've ever been. That's not something I've ever been involved in, or that I want to be involved in. You know, it's um, I know that there's rules. You know, they say, oh, never go into business with family, never go into business with blah 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 blah, and there's good reasons for that. I did have a business that was a partnership with my partner's brother, his wife, my partner, and I, and him were all held 25% of a business. So we tried to do a trucking business together. There's kind of a mismatch there in terms of, well, I would say in terms of commitment to it, from the standpoint of willingness to do the work. We were entirely on the road. We talked to one another. The truck that I drove was not a part of the business. We my domestic partner and we drove teams. She drove during the day, I drove at night, and we liked our situation, and we were just basically fronting the money, or at least a good chunk of the money, and acting in more of an advisory capacity. And that was something that, you know, we let him be the CEO and all this stuff, and there were always reasons for him to put in a 4-hour work week, to be out on the road for 4 hours, or for 4 days instead of 5 or 6. And you know, when you are starting out, you have to be willing to commit the time. You have to be willing to be consistent, and by sacrificing opportunities to run more loads, more miles, at that point, we fell prey to equipment failure and stuff later on, without the resources necessary to deal with them. And there was a reliance on skills and experience that on paper were there, but in practical terms weren't. And this is somebody that we knew, somebody that, you know, we knew very well. And it turned out that, you know, that just wasn't the right partner for us. And we sank a lot of money into it over you know, a couple of years, and eventually we bailed because it came to the point where it was interfering with our relationship, with family relationships. So we bailed, and that's something that is I think pretty common, unfortunately. I've never had a good experience as far as a business partner, and it seems like a lot of the businesses that I see that are kind of starting out with business partners, they tend to fall apart fairly quickly because of a mismatch in maybe commitment, work ethic, whatever. But anyway, touch base and share these thoughts with you. And if you want to help support my affordable housing initiative, you can join our Patreon. It's $3 a month. You get a couple perks along with that. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful day and continue being awesome.